This is exercise 6F on division of decimals, and it's on page 340 of your textbook. Alright, so over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about decimal points, and we've talked about addition, subtraction, and multiplication of decimals. So we're going to go ahead and look at the division of decimals. There's two types of division of decimals. Number one is when we're dividing by whole numbers, and number two is when we're dividing by other decimals. So for example, the whole numbers one is if I have a decimal divided by a whole number, so 60.524 divided by 4, or divided by other decimals, which would be something like 24.562 divided by 0.02. So we're going to look at those two, and then finally we'll look at dividing by multiples of 10. So let's go ahead and look at division by whole numbers first. Basically, the rules are you complete as you would normally complete a division algorithm, and then the decimal point in the quotient goes directly above the decimal point in the dividend. So just a reminder, this one over here, that's my quotient. This one is my, this one over here is my dividend. And this one over here is my divisor. So it's always the dividend divided by the divisor to give you the quotient, okay? So basically, we do it as normal, except we make sure that the decimal place is aligned. So let's go ahead and do an example, and we'll come back to the rest of it. So on the bottom left, I've got 42.837 divided by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my skate ramp and my numbers in the middle, divided by 3. So how many times does 3 go into 4? 1. How many times, and then 1 extra, sorry. How many times does 3 go into 12? 4. Now the decimal point should be right above, so right here. 3, how many times does it go into 8? 2, with 2 remainder. How many times does 3 go into 23? 7, with 2 remainder. How many times does 3 go into 27, sorry? 9. So my answer is 14.279. Now, just like we did with our multiplying decimals, a good way to make sure we've got it right is to estimate. I know that 42.837 is approximately 42. And I know that 42 divided by 3 is, so 3 goes in 4 once, and then with 1 remainder, 3 goes in 12 4 times. So I know that 42 divided by 3 is 14. So my answer should be approximately 14. Just a reminder, that means about, should be about 14. And I've got an answer of 14.279, which means I know that it's correct. Let's keep going. If I've got something like I'll use a different color. If I've got 0.0234, would you agree that that's the same as if I write 0.0234000000? Oh, yes, we've talked about this, and we can actually add on zeros for as many times as we want after the decimal point. And we'll go into that into a second. Now this one's divided by 4. Now how many times is 4 going to 0? None. How many times is 4 going to 0? None. Remember the decimal point has to be above, so I'm going to draw it right there. How many times is 4 going to 2? None. How many times is 4 going to 23? 5 times with 3 remainder. How many times is 4 going to 34? 8 times with 2 remainder. Now, I can remember what I said earlier, I can keep drawing zeros, right? So I'm going to draw one more 0. How many times is 4 going to 20? 5. So my answer is 0.0585. Perfect. Now let's talk about division of decimal by other decimals. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, except first we have to make sure, sorry about that, we have to make sure that our divisor, so in this case it'd be 0.02, we've got to make sure our divisor is a whole number. So to do that, 0.02, I can multiply that by 100 and make the decimal place go 1, 2 this way, and I end up with 2. But if I multiply the divisor by 100, I also have to multiply the dividend, so that'd be this one, by 100. So I would go 1, 2, and my new division would be 2456.2 divided by 2. So that's how we go about it. We got to make sure that the divisor is a whole number, and make sure that the dividend is reflective of that. So let's go ahead and do this question over here. So for 62.316, so 62.316 divided by 0.03. Now 0.03 doesn't really land well with our division. So let's try and get this to a whole number. What if I move the decimal place 2 times to get 3? That means I move this decimal point 2 times to get 6,231.6. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. 6231.6 divided by 3. Now we can solve it. How many times is 3 going to 6? 2 times. How many times is 3 going to 2? 0. How many times is 3 going to 23? I can put it 7 times with 2 remainder. How many times is 3 going to 21? 7. The decimal point goes here. How many times is 3 going to 6? 2. So my answer is 2077.2. With this example on the right, I've got 0.03152 divided by 0.002. Once again, the 0.002 does not really lend well to our division. So let's move this decimal place 1, 2, 3 times. Same thing with this one, 1, 2, 3. And I end up with the new division of 31.52 divided by 2. Because I've moved the decimal place 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I end up with 31.52 divided by 2. How many times is 2 going to 3? Once with 1 remainder. How many times is 2 going to 11? 5 times with 1 remainder. Decimal point goes there. Remember, it's right above. How many times is 2 going to 15? 7 times with 1 remainder. How many times is 2 going to 12? 6 times. So my answer is 15.76. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about dividing by multiples of 10. So it's quite similar to our multiplication of multiples of 10, but let's go ahead and read this if I can zoom out properly. Okay, so to divide by decimal numbers by multiples of 10, we initially ignore the zeros in the divisor and then reposition the decimal point. So let's go ahead and do one example right here. So 67.04 divided by 8,000. Would you agree that that's the same, 8,000 here, is the same as 8 times 1,000? Awesome. So I know that this question is the same as if I write 67.04 divided by 8 and then divided by 1,000 at the end, right? But let's ignore that 1,000 for now. Let's just look at this part over here. Let's go ahead and solve that. So 67.04 divided by 8. How many times is 8 going to 6? None. How many times is 8 going to 67? Or it goes into 8 times, which gives me 3 remainder. Remember the decimal point now. How many times does 8 go into 30? Goes into 33 times, which gives 24, right? So it's 6 remainder, which is 8 times 8 gives me 64. So I know that that is equal to 8.38. Now, I can't forget about the divide by 1,000 that we've written before, so let's keep writing. Now, remember, if I'm dividing by 1,000, I'm moving left the same number of spaces that there are zeros. So in this one, there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 zeros, so I move left 3 spaces. So it goes, is equal to 0, 0, 0, 0. 838. Now originally the decimal place was right here, right? So let's move 1, 2, 3. That means the new decimal place is right there. So my answer is 0.00838. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Good luck.